In the spirit of reconciliation, SFAN OGAE Australia acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Welcome to you all for joining us to review the Eurovision Song Contest movie, The Story of Fire Saga. Ooh, prop time, here we go. Yep, I won't wear that all night. Aspiring musicians Lars and Sigrid are given the chance to represent Iceland in the world's largest song competition and prove that a dream worth having is a dream worth fighting for. So this is the movie that we've all wanted, and we have 8 OGAE Australia, actually we have 9 OGAE Australia members, plus a few 4-legged friends of theirs to give us, all geared up to give us their opinions. So let's head to Sydney first up. We've got Angela. Angela, do you want to give us like a short review and a bit of a score out of 10? What did you think of the Story of Fire Saga?
Actually, it delivered on what I thought it would. It was somewhat cringeworthy. That's exactly what I was expecting. So I enjoyed the cringe part of it. What I didn't enjoy was the length of time. I kept looking at the timing to say, this is 2 hours. I'm lucky if I've got a attention span of more than about 20 minutes. So that kind of shocked me a little bit. I also thought, because it's an American film about Eurovision, that this was like an advert for Eurovision for Americans. So I wonder if this is a precursor to an invite sometime in the future. Who knows? My score out of 10, I'm going to give it 5.
Whoa. That's a 5 out of 10 for Angela. That's a bit harsh. No, that's all right. That's all right.
I actually thought that it's great if you follow Eurovision. Yep. So if as a Eurovision fan, I'm going to give it 8. For the general public, yep, I would say they'd probably give it less than 5. So I reckon overall it's a 5.
Okay, well, we'll see how that goes with everyone else. So thinking back, still with Angela, so thinking back a couple of years ago, what were your initial expectations for the rumoured Eurovision movie?
The same deal that I figured this is probably going to be cringeworthy, and it delivered. And it delivered,
exactly. How about you, Lisa? What did you think? Like, how did you initially feel knowing that, you know, there's this movie coming out?
Oh, look, when I saw it advertised, I went, what the? Like, seriously, Will Ferrell, yeah, apparently that's how you say it. He is the most funniest actor, and I love him. Knowing it was pretty on par with that skating movie.
Blades of Glory.
Blades of Glory.
Oh my God,
so
I don't know
it was
these
kind
movies.
of on the same sort of.
Chris, where have you been?
and I love it.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
What about you, Kai? Sorry.
Yeah.
What about you, Kai?
I totally loved it.
What were your expectations, Kai?
No expectations. Oh, sorry.
I didn't really know what to expect because it's like a Eurovision film. I was like, oh, well, if they get the weird and quirky side to it, then they've got me. Like, Eurovision's all about the weirdness and the cringy, like, songs that you hear every year. And then I think with the initial of us hearing Volcano Man at the start, just when Eurovision was meant to be on this year, I think that really caught my attention. I was like, this is going to be good if it's cringy. Yeah.
What about you, Luke?
In terms of Will Ferrell, I was super excited because Anchorman is a cult film. Anchorman has been a cult film for like 12 years before everybody asked for it to come back for Anchorman 2. And Anchorman 2, yes, was a bit of a flop. But he had Talladega Nights, which I believe is the movie that you're referring to before. Talladega Nights was a little bit less so. So we all weren't expecting high hopes from Will Ferrell, but we were thinking that the movie could go both ways. It was either going to become cult status or it was going to flop. And I'm sorry, but what we've got here is a cult status movie.
Awesome. And like Luke, you're obviously a bit of a Will Ferrell fan. Is that how you say it? I thought it was always Ferrell. So anyway,
Who cares?
who cares? It doesn't matter. Do it tomato. So with your professional understanding of the work of Will Ferrell, how did he go in this one?
Oeuvre, darling, is the word you're looking for. His oeuvre. Yeah.
His oeuvre. Yeah, so look, I think Will Ferrell always started out on things like Saturday Night Live, so we were always going to expect good comedy things from him. So whether the writing was going to be good, whether the writing was going to be bad, Will Ferrell is always going to deliver the kind of comedic timing that we expect from someone that started out on Saturday Night Live and then transitioned into theatre and movies. So I was expecting him to deliver comedy, and he did.
Awesome. Like for me, I've only seen Zoolander. I'm stretching my mind to think of what else I've seen him in, and I have I think I've only seen
Elf?
Zoolander. So
Elf?
I'm terrible. But we'll get to that a little bit later. But I do have to ask Lisa. Like, how did you feel? How did you feel about Will's performance?
Oh, look, it's just typical Will. Just
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely loved it.
You're a big fan.
I am a fan.
And is this
Yeah.
Will's
Zoolander.
best movie? Is this Will's best movie to date?
One
One
look.
Well, anyway, let's
No,
move-
it's not his best
No?
movie to
Okay.
date.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, look, let's hand over to right here in my living room to Ricky to give us a bit of a review and a score as well.
Well, for me, I guess it's more. I will probably give it like around maybe like 7. Will Ferrell's not really my kind of humor. Is not the kind of like comedy that I normally go for. But like I do enjoy it. There are components of it that I thought that it was really good as a fan watching it. There are like, you can see all the, for example, the sing-along where you can see all the different like stars on there. You can see all the different like bits about Eurovision that are on there as a fan, that it's really exciting. But again, like what Angela was saying, there's this bit of cringiness around there, but I still am a bit more forgiving. So I gave it a 7.
Cool. Now, there's another actress in this movie, that's Rachel McAdams. And look, I mean, Rachel McAdams has been in a couple of these quirky Will Ferrell-esque movies, but she also is a Oscar nominee. She was up for Best Supporting Actor for Spotlight a few years ago. So, Ruth, what did you think of Rachel's performance in the movie as Sigrid?
Yeah, I thought she was good. She was very sweet and unassuming without being naive. Her lip syncing for my money, could have done with a bit of work, but no, I thought it was nice. It kind of cut through all the crassness and the overtly sexual jokes about penises, and she was obviously Molly Sandgren's voice gave her so much authority and so much beauty, and the fact that she always loved him, I thought she portrayed really well. No, I loved it, and I'm living with a Mean Girls fanatic. My 18-year-old daughter can quote you anything on Mean Girls, so I'm familiar with her work. No, I thought she nailed it. I thought she was good, and I think there's a little bit of Canadian backbone in there as well that will help propel something that's vaguely anti-American but can still laugh at itself. No, I thought she was good. I liked her. Yeah.
I think you touched on something
But
where...
she needed a hairdresser. I'm sorry,
Oh.
you cannot go to Eurovision with hair like that.
Very
She needed
true.
him to braid her hair.
Very true. But that was the point of the movie. She needed that terrible hair to get braided. So, something that I didn't pick up on. But you touched on something about how the crassness of Will's penis jokes and such jokes throughout the movie.
Look, I'm a straight, white, middle-aged woman, okay?
But I feel like she smoothed over those and and she brought some sort of class to those jokes by actually joining in and making her own versions of the jokes, but also
Can I do a camel? I'll do a camel, a classic camel.
yeah, and that innocence is the thing that we like that all contributes to the innocence of both Lars and Sigrid throughout the movie. Luke, what did you think about Rachel McAdams in this movie?
Look, I think the earliest thing that I can remember her from is obviously Regina George in Mean Girls. So she comes from a very comedic background. So we're also going to remember Regina George, but we're also going to remember Jessica from The Hot Chick. She was incredible in that movie. And again, Jessica from The Hot Chick, and I know we're all going to sit there and cringe. Rob Schneider, like it was a cringe movie, but it's also a cult classic movie. So we look at things like The Labyrinth, we look at The Dark Crystal, they're cult classic movies. This is another thing that Rachel McAdams can just tick off her bucket list of classic cult movies that she's a part of. So I expected her to bring the comedic front, not expected to be doing the best job that everybody gives her the credit for.
And another thing I like about her performance, just the little tiny things, and the main one being when the flames went up on the stage and she would scream, because I can imagine that that's exactly what I would do for the first time when those things go up. And it was a beautiful touch. Let's go to New South Wales, the Blue Mountains, and get a bit of a review from Fiona and a score out of 10.
Okay, well, the first time I saw it, I think I just took it way too seriously. My Eurovision nerd was like, oh, hang on a minute, that shouldn't happen. But then when I watched it the second time and I didn't take it so seriously and I just took the jokes for what they were, I just thought it was hilarious. And I've watched it now several times since. Originally I gave it a 6, but now I give it a 7.
A 7? A 7 out of 10?
Yeah, 7. Yeah, definitely. And I think it gets better the more time you watch it, because you just miss out on certain little idiosyncrasies that Will does, and Rachel kind of plays along with it. And I'm going to discuss this soon, the next question about Alexander Lemtov. Hello! My favourite, but I'll get to that.
We'll get to that. I think we're getting to that now. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the other characters other than Lars and Sigrid.
Kevin Swain!
So Fiona, who were some of your favourite characters, or who was your favourite character other than the two leads?
Okay, well, I kind of just gave it away then, but without a doubt, Dan Stevens as Alexander Lemtov. Oh my Lord. I mean, his Russian accent and the mannerisms were just perfect. He was just absolutely hilarious. And I don't think I will actually see Matthew Crawley in the same light in Downton Abbey ever again after seeing this performance. He was just, I mean, I can't do the accent, but every little thing he did, just his mannerisms, the way he kind of spoke, especially when he braided her hair. Oh my God, it was just, I just couldn't stop laughing throughout the whole thing. I mean, he's just brilliant. And his performance on stage, obviously with, was it Line of Love? Just hilarious again. I mean, he was the best part of the whole movie, bar none. Absolutely. And Kevin Swain as well. Second to that, Kevin Swain.
Okay, how about you, Michael?
Only because
sorry. How about you, Michael? Give me some of your favourite non-lead characters in the movie.
Graham Norton.
Graham Norton?
Really? Oh, God, no.
Well,
Willie Lee Adams.
He was terrible. Sorry, but he was horrible. He shouldn't have been in it. It just ruined the whole movie.
Okay, well, we had a big shake of the head from Luke for Dan Stevens. Dan. Is it Dan Stevens? Dan, did I get them mixed up?
Yes, Dan Stevens.
Yep, okay. So, Luke, who do you think were some of the highlights from the supporting cast?
Ya ding dong! You all need to say ya ding dong!
So we're talking about the angry Icelandic. Yep.
Yeah.
I literally just woke up my roommate. I need to stop. Sorry.
Hey, Luke, it was really funny because I thought Ya Ya Ding Dong. I wonder if that's actually a Eurovision song. So I did a Google search.
Have you actually looked at the lyrics to Ya Ya
I
Ding
know,
Dong?
I know.
It's
Exactly. My
just
love is growing wider and
ridiculous.
deeper. Yeah. I will sprinkle you with my love. I know.
And the fact that he has to make his ding dong look bigger. So
And no, it's wider. It's not bigger. It's wider.
Wider and deeper. Wider and longer.
but we all digress. So
I just found the title of my Grindr profile. Let's be honest.
okay, so look, there can be no real Eurovision movie without the inclusion of a certain song. And the Story of Fire Saga starts out with ABBA's Waterloo. So let's take a moment to talk about how Waterloo was an iconic and pivotal point in the Eurovision Song Contest, and possibly a very good starting point for the movie. So let's go to Ruth. What did you think?
Well, look, I've got to speak personally here. 1974 was the first time I was allowed to stay up and watch Eurovision. And I was sent to bed before the end, but I remember lying in bed listening to the radio because it was also simulcast on BBC, and listening to that song thinking, it's very loud. I think it's it's not really a song. It's more of it's a very loud song. But yeah, that's the first, and that was when Eurovision kind of turned a corner and became more mainstream and grew up a bit, as it has done ever since. But yeah, I think it's a touchstone for a lot of Eurovision historians, and it is a good jumping off point, but it's been done to death. Come on, let's move on.
What about you, Michael? Do you agree?
So Ruth, I've got to say, there's no way you could be old enough to have stayed up. I thought it was only me who was old enough possibly to stay up and do that. So that part of the movie, I felt like I was Will Ferrell. I was that 7-year-old kid watching that, listening to it. I grew up with ABBA, dancing with my sister. So that was everything. So when it comes to the movie, there's some absolute sweet pops to it. And starting off there is a good sort of communal start for people to actually get some reference points of what it's about. And very much as has been said, it's a starting point. And it's a great place to jump off with this film. Now, where the film actually goes, but as that first beautiful 5 minutes of sitting there, I mean, personally, I thought I was in a Danny Freya video clip as the whole thing was starting off somehow or other, that one there, with everyone sitting around watching some TV. But awesome start to the film. And Waterloo is an iconic moment in there. It's sort of the colour, it's the glam. It's suddenly when Eurovision takes a turn and stops being just a song contest, but it becomes an event.
Yep. And Kai, did you think that Waterloo was a good place to start, or did you think that there would have been a better song?
I think Waterloo was a great place to start because someone from my generation, I'm a younger generation, I didn't watch that performance in 1974. So I think Waterloo is a good place to start because most people who don't even watch Eurovision would know what Waterloo is. They wouldn't know where they played at Eurovision, but they know that song. So I think it's a good film. If they don't really know much about Eurovision, that might give them that understanding a little bit more. Yeah.
Okay, so from Waterloo, we're going to head over to Ruth, and for the next question. From Waterloo, we start to get into a little bit of new music from the Eurovision movie. We start off with Volcano Man, which I'm really annoyed that there's only like a minute of it, and then the soundtrack still just has a minute. Yes. Yep. And that big budget film clip, it was very Blas Canto as far as I was concerned, Universo. That
yes, Universo, yes.
So, and I actually thought that was going to be their Eurovision song, and even when they said Double Trouble, I thought that was going to be it. But that's but like the soundtrack is actually full of a lot of brand new songs. So Ruth, how did you feel like they fit into the Eurovision, mold of song? Do you think
perfectly? My personal favourite was 21st Century Viking, and I wish that was on the album, but it's not on the album. It's only about 30 seconds, I think.
Yeah.
But that falsetto of a Viking with a ginger beard, yeah, loved it.
I call him the
It's
Disco
perfect.
Viking. So yeah.
Yeah.
No,
No, I think they nailed the Eurovision genre. I think they got it. They were on brand with the songs, definitely. But I would have liked some more of 21st Century Viking.
Me too. Fiona, do you have a favourite song?
From the soundtrack?
Yes.
Yes. I'd say Husavik, obviously, and Double Trouble, with Volcano Man coming in a third. Those three songs definitely are Eurovision style songs. I mean, yes, they are comedic, especially like Volcano Man with the screeching eagle and the and obviously Double Trouble with the I don't really give up. You know, it's a bit of comedy, but the songs in general are very Eurovision, which I love. And I liked how a lot of the songs on the soundtrack paid homage to a lot of Eurovision, like obviously the Belarus song with Lordi. Of course, Ya Ya Ding Dong was just a homage to all the folk songs of Eurovision in the past, somewhat. And even the San Marino song was very much like those upbeat tracks like Switzerland and Austria do now and again. So I like there was a bit of homage with the comedy as well, which made it a good soundtrack.
Michael, did you have a favourite new song from Eurovision, the new Eurovision song?
I do. I'm going to be contraire. I absolutely loved Full Moon. And it's been on repeat for me by the wonderful. It's actually a Finnish band called Andoros. I think that's what Antros they're called. It's a really cool original video clip when you go back and go down that rabbit hole. But Full Moon, amazing. Reminds me of Passion Pit and a bit of Jamiroquai put together. And there are many a floor I would be on, Ruth. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Okay, let's head, here in Melbourne. Now, these are the Melbourne Mountains, not the Blue Mountains. We've got our own version here. We've got Kai. Kai, give us a little bit of a review and your score out of 10.
I personally love the film. I think Will Ferrell did a amazing job writing it. I thought American writing the film would be a bit, I'm not too sure if American would do that well. But I thought it was really good. I loved it so much. I've watched it so many times. I'm going to give it a 8 out of 10.
Is that 8? Yep.
It's just the quirkiness. It just sums up Eurovision so well. And just, it's Eurovision in a cup of tea. Yeah.
Very much so. Let's talk about the Icelandic national final. Still with Kai, there's a lot happening there. There was the angry Eurovision national final hosts. God forbid we ever have to actually go there for a real Eurovision because they will just yell us down the whole time. We got the elves to compete with. We got that boat blowing up. What did you think about the whole scenario?
I think that the elves were definitely a little bit too far, but I think it was just put in there so weirdly that just made it just seem a lot more Eurovision because it's weird, and that's something that so many of European countries still they have that ideology and fantasy that those elves are things, and they still go and do that. The boat situation was very
unexpected.
It was unexpected and
plot driven, maybe.
I don't know, obviously that wouldn't happen in real life. Well, I mean, I was a bit iffy about the whole boat scene and how they were just not in the boat, and I don't know, that scene just kind of put me off a little bit, but for them it works out because that's how the storyline continues.
That's exactly right. Lisa, what did you think about the national final scene for Iceland?
Oh gosh, I loved it.
Yep.
I can't say much, but talking about the boat scene, it was hilarious. It was so Will comedy.
Yeah.
And
the arm landing on the wall.
Yeah, it's gross out. Yeah.
It was harmless, wasn't it?
It was an unexpected way to do it. Michael, what did you think? Oh, he's getting.
Oh, look, I love it. I love a bit of song kepping. You know, you've got to give me a bit of that somehow or other every year. Look, plot twist. it was a way to move it forward. There were some amazing, fun little songs there. It was a part of the film which paid great homage to national finals, which, you know, don't always go as expected, and which is actually the beauty. So those of us who are, you know, down rabbit holes, I love national final season even more so. You know, they're my wonders. I'll pick you a song from somewhere, and you know, tell me what from this year. Who can't forget a bit of Latvian? Who want to be a Latvian basketball player or Lithuanian basketball player? Should I say? Yes,
Yep.
Exactly right.
Now I forgot to ask. Oh, sorry, Ruth. Yep. Yep.
Sorry. There's a line in the movie that says this national final won't qualify unless we have 12 competing acts. Now Australia only has 10.
It might
Is
be.
that actually a Eurovision rule?
It might be just their rule, or maybe it's a movie rule. I don't know. So
Yeah.
now I did forget to ask Ricky before about his favorite non-lead character, because I believe one of the Icelandic delegates might have been his favorite.
Yeah, I love the woman with the bob. I just thought that she was so funny, and
Anna.
like, you know,
Anna.
yeah. And she was like, she had such like passion about like, you know, Eurovision, and it was like a very tunnel vision kind of fan, and it just like really shined the light of like the kind of people that actually like Eurovision, and it really reminded me of a lot of people that I kind of like to be around with when I'm out at parties. And it's just like, you know, very energetic and very fun, and she was just like very lovely. I loved it.
Okay, so Ruth, I think this next question is right up your alley. Well,
All right.
we have plenty of cameos from in the Eurovision movie, but one that sort of was probably most surprising was Salvador Sobral performing his 2017 winning song quite early on in the movie in Scotland. So basically Eurovision hosted in UK. You know that this is a fantasy movie.
Said right, yeah.
Yes.
Well, actually, one of the information, UK has often hosted when other countries couldn't.
This is
other
true.
countries won, but they couldn't afford it, or they wouldn't. Yeah.
Now,
So it does kind of make sense. Yeah.
Now, I know that you're a big fan of this song, but how do you feel about Salvador being in it, considering that he apparently dissed Eurovision basically when he won?
Apparently. Let me read you this quote.
Okay.
Music is not a contest, and the perfect song isn't a winning song. It's a song that comes from the heart. Now, who said that?
It's,
Will Ferrell in this movie.
Yes, exactly. Well picked up.
He really feels
everyone
to me
seems
like
to have
he's a
missed
baby
that this is the moral of the story, that music isn't about popularity, it's not about winning, it's about what you feel. And just to put that in context, we live in a world of disposable music, fast food music, without any content, and I think this could be a victory for music with people who make music that actually means something. Music is not fireworks, music is feeling. So let's try to change this and bring music back, which is really what matters. Who said that?
Salvador. Yes.
Somebody who with the most boring Eurovision act of all time.
Oh, shut up.
Such a beautiful song. Yeah, no,
He's doing that on purpose.
I think it's nice that he was included, let's be honest. And I also think it's nice that you don't have to be a party animal to enjoy Eurovision.
Just like when you're in primary school and you're like, thanks for turning up. Thank you. Here's a special award. Thank you so much.
No, Lou. No.
No, seriously, think of the royalties they would have got. They played 3/4 of that whole song in the movie. Think of the royalties from that. There's a reason he turned up. But no, I think it was sweet.
Baby got banged.
So Fiona, what do you think about the inclusion of Salvador Sobral in the movie?
Well, I thought it was brilliant. Just hearing those violins start at the song of Amar Pelos Dosh in the movie.
That's my ringtone. That's my ringtone.
Yes. And especially, you know, with them arriving in Edinburgh and obviously segueing through the city. And it was just such, I mean, I've been to Edinburgh, it's a magical place, and just seeing that on the screen with that song in the background, I almost started crying. It was just beautiful. And then obviously at the end with Salvador singing and on the piano, It was very kitsch. As my friend would have said, campers tits. Isn't that right, Luke? That's what he said, not me. Yeah, it was just beautiful. And look, in regards to his comments about Eurovision, I don't think personally he insulted the contest. It was more he was just disapproving of pop music in general. I mean, he comes from a jazz background, so obviously he's not interested in pop music. And I think his comments were misconstrued when he did speak of them, like was just mentioned at Eurovision. I think, and also he does in interviews he's done recently, he obviously, realizes it may have been too extreme what he said. But I think, and what he has said as well in other interviews, that what he tried to convey was that Eurovision is just an overly produced theatrical show, lots of fireworks, which it is, and that's why we love it, rather than shows in the past that were obviously just presenting music in its purest form with an orchestra. So that's kind of what he was saying. And also take into consideration at Eurovision in 2017, he was very ill. Yeah. He was actually carrying like 20 kilos of liquid retention. I don't know if you noticed, but he's wearing this massive big suit and shirt, and he's got this huge big gut because of his heart condition. So, I don't blame him for being a bit crappy and a bit opinionated, because if he's carrying around that much amount of fluid, I mean, I'm surprised he even managed to walk up those stairs. Yeah. Because he was really ill, and the fact that he could perform that song amongst millions of people and do it so well is just testament to the man he is and the artist he is. So, thank you.
That's all right. I believe that the 2017 contest was the year that Will Ferrell sort of got the idea for the Eurovision movie. So it makes sense that Salvador should be...
No, it was 99. It was 99. It was Charlotte Perreri in Israel.
So 99 was the first Eurovision Song Contest that Will had watched, and he watched it with his wife. But the actual conception of the movie came in 2017. This is what I've read today. So, but I know that he's been a fan since 99. But I have to point out that my theory in Salvador's inclusion on his own is that he was invited to the song-along, but found out Netta was in it, and so said, "No, I want my own song." I'm just kidding.
No, sorry. Can I just say one thing?
That was a joke, by the way. Sorry. Come on.
It was a good joke. Yes. I quite enjoyed it. It was funny when I saw, I'd said to Lisa, because his song was a favourite of hers. So when we heard it, I said, "Oh, this is your song." And then I saw a guy playing a piano, and she said, "Oh, that's him. That's Salvador." I said, No, he looks too thin. I couldn't even believe it was him.
Okay, so let's go to Luke here in Melbourne.
All I really need to say, though, is that if Will Ferrell's impression of Eurovision was 2017, no wonder Australia wasn't included, because his impression was Isaiah. Well, it's not
shade.
No wonder we weren't included.
So, Luke, give us a little bit of your review and your score out of 10.
So I'm gonna give it a 9, but there are 2 reasons why I don't give it a complete perfect 10. The first reason is that Loreen looked like she had too much plastic surgery, that I didn't even recognize that it was Loreen coming down the stairs. She came down and I was like, who's that girl? And then afterwards I watched the breakdown on YouTube and I was like, oh,
yeah, same.
That's Loreen. And the only other reason I don't give it a complete 10...
She'd lost that, and then she went like that. It's
all just like, let's for the gods. But the only other reason is that there was no Mans Zelma love. And there's no Eurovision without Mans. And the only reason I watched this movie was to sit there in my own vat of vino and watch Hot Guys Like Moms, and he just wasn't there. So I give it a 9, but it could have been a solid 10 if Mons was included.
So you wouldn't take the Russian backing dancers as being 3/4 of Mons. That's not enough for you. You need the whole Mons. Is that right?
90% of the kids in my musical theatre degree are the background Russian singers, so I don't need those guys. I just needed my Mons.
Okay, so Ricky, you went to Tel Aviv last year, as I did, and so did Michael. Ricky, how did you feel when you saw the Eurovision stage, on our screen?
Well, I mean, a lot of the times I'll be like, oh my God, like, look at that stage. Like, we've been there. I was standing at this spot. And I remember, like, each night before we actually go live and before we start filming, and then that, like, the Netflix crew will come in, or the production manager will come in and say, like, oh, we're filming something for Netflix, and then you guys need to cheer. And then they would, like, play both of the songs. And I still remember to this day, they were like, oh, this is Iceland songs, or this is like Russia's song. And I remember, I think they actually played it the other way around so that we don't know which song's who. And then we have to, like, cheer, and then they would do all their long shots, and they would do all their reaction to it. And there's always, like, moments when I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, I wish that I was, like, I wish that I could, like, just freeze frame to see where I was in the frame where they actually shot it. But it was really cool to kind of feel like that you are connected to like something that is on Netflix. It's almost the same as, like, when we go to, like, Australia this side, and then we kind of, like, do the same thing where we're like, oh, I was there, and, like, I was standing at this spot, and you're trying to actually look for yourself on TV. Or, like, you get your friends to, like, text you to say, like, oh, I actually just saw you. You were, like, here. You appeared on my TV. So it's almost like the same kind of feeling that I have.
Can I ask, did they capture the atmosphere, do you think, Ricky?
Yeah, like, I mean, when we were there, obviously, Tel Aviv has been like a smaller stadium, but it really did feel like it was almost the same as what we felt when we were in Tel Aviv. Like, obviously, it was our voice, and we cheered the same way, and knowing that, like, I remember the first time we were there, and they would say, like, oh, we're doing a movie, like, from Netflix, and, like, I didn't know anything about it. I was relatively young to the Eurovision family or the fandom, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, like, as in, it's something that I really like is now getting a bit more mainstream. So I think they did capture, like, the atmosphere of what it's going to be like in a live show.
Yeah, and I think the other thing about, with Ruth's question about capturing the atmosphere, I don't think the movie or the actual Eurovision contest could possibly capture the mood in the stadium, and a bit biased. Yeah, but the thing is, like, no one that wasn't, anyone that wasn't in the stadium would never know how loud it was when Kate Miller-Headke actually performed or came on stage. Yeah. They will never know that feeling unless you're in the stadium. And so, and yeah, so, oh, sorry, my alarm's going on. Yeah, so there's no way that there's no chance you could capture that moment unless you were in there. So I
It was one of the best parts of the movie, though. Yeah. It was one of the best parts of the movie is, like, watching them come out into that big audience, because I feel all of us as Eurovision fans have sat there and gone, what would it be like to get on that stage? And we got to experience that in this movie. That's what made it brilliant.
Yeah. Michael, you're also in Tel Aviv. So did it bring back some good memories for you as well?
Oh, look, totally. Personally, I want my own IMDb.
Because you're in it.
Because I have free fame myself.
15 guys on the right.
So, no, I was going to bring up, because I'm like, that rainbow cowboy hat only says one thing to me, and that's Michael Novi from Sydney. And I was going to ask you, was that actually you?
I think so. There was bits of me in there, so yes.
Oh, can you post the time in the movies? It's like 1 hour 23
I'll have a
or something.
and post the time, yes.
I know.
Yeah.
You know what, Ricky, Chris, really quickly, because I think we have to wrap up for the first bit.
No, because we got extended. We got extended, so we're going well.
Oh, hooray.
Yeah.
So
our love is long and deep and broad.
And wide.
It's extended.
And wide.
That was actually my nickname in prison, but sure.
So yeah,
So I thought
Michael,
it was actually quite awesome. So it did actually that staging there was great. It brought back so many wonderful memories, and it's the thing that we've missed out this year, haven't we? We've missed out that the songs were there, and the songs were amazing this year in 2020. But it's the interaction, it's that intimacy, it's the crowd, it's the noise there. It's what makes Eurovision, and so the staging and the crowd is everything.
it's the final product as well. It's vastly different to what we've seen. So we really did miss out. Let's go to the song along, which was one of the main highlight of the movie at the time, as far as I'm concerned. So I was shocked to see all these people. I was like, oh, wow, they actually got Eurovision, and they've got that person. Oh, they got that person, and they got that person. Oh my God. What did we all think about the song along? Maybe we'll go to Angela.
Yeah, actually, it surprised me a little because I hadn't read any reviews about the movie. I just thought, okay, we'll watch this. It's about Eurovision. When the song along came on, I started to get really animated and excited because I started to see people that I recognised and they're not actors. So I found that exciting.
And Fiona, what did you think?
I just thought it was fantastic. Obviously, it was definitely made for us Eurovision fans. I mean, as soon as I saw John Ludwig, I literally squealed because I knew something was going to happen. I knew it was, something. And then when Loreen was descending down the stairs, and then Alexander Rybak with his fiddle, I was literally screaming by that stage. I was like, I was a mess. However, I found it odd that the songs they used were not their respective songs from the contest. I think that would have been better, especially for like the non-Eurovision viewers, because then they could kind of connect to, whereas singing like Believe, Ray of Light and I Got a Feeling, it was like, what? Why are they singing these songs? Like, it has nothing to do with
Because they're all in a major key. They're all in a major key. And very few Eurovision songs are in a minor key, are in a major key. Yeah.
I know, and Loreen, she sounded out of tune as well. So I was just like, what the hell is going on? And obviously, Without a Fringe, that just threw me completely. It took me ages to realise it was her, but then I realised it was her. And said hello. But anyway, overall, I thought it was brilliant, but I just thought the choice of songs was a bit bizarre. And of course, not having Mons there just ruined it completely for me. Sorry, my light just went out. And I would have loved to see Hatari there, being Icelandic. I mean, I know they wouldn't have been there because obviously they're anti-establishment, so they're never going to be there. But just to be a band in the corner, doing their spiel with, the bombs and stuff, it would have been fabulous. I would have loved to have seen that.
Yeah.
I feel like I know what Ruth and I know what Michael will say about this, but let's go to Kai. How did you feel about the non-Eurovision songs being included in the song along?
I was a little bit disappointed. Like, I got the Waterloo bit at the end. I understood that. But like using Black Eyed Peas and who else did they use? Yeah.
They did Believe by Cher and they did Ray of Light by Madonna.
I think, like, obviously those songs are very popular and in more of a, the Western society, like most people know them, but I was a bit disappointed they didn't use Eurovision hits. Like, we've got, where was Verka? Like, I wanted to see her come out in her silver costume with a little star at the top and then just like pop out of nowhere.
Actually, yes, she was missing. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
I thought like we would have put her in because they did use that reference of Russia with the culture with their like gay laws. So I thought that they might have put her in there, but they didn't. I just wasn't a fan of the songs that they used. I definitely think there could have been something else. But the people that were in it, like we got Alex, as he said, with the classic violin. We had Netta.
Every bloody time he goes to a party, he has to take his violin with him. You
can't not have the violin. Anna,
Jesse Matador, which I didn't realise until today because I was like, I don't recognise this as much.
No idea who he was.
Yeah, Alina, Conchita.
Can I just say, I was glad they put in Ne Partez pas sans moi.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like I have a personal connection to that song, so I was doubly happy. So for those who know, because I did drag to that at the So You Think You Can Eurovision event that we had. So look it up on YouTube. Don't laugh at me.
Can I? Sorry, I know I'm being dominant here. Can I just say another thing? The one person missing from that song along was Kate Miller-Heidke going, "Quicker than a ray of light, quicker than a I mean, it would have been perfect, wouldn't it? A 7-meter pole would have been great.
I was going to ask Michael, you know, other than Mans, because we all want Mans, and everyone's saying how much they miss Mans. Michael, who would have been your song-along fantasy?
So I think Ruth has taken it away from me. I would have gone Kate as well. I think that was exactly what I was just thinking. A little bit of her and, but you know, look, there are lots and lots of favourites I would have in there. You could have had a little bit of
Elka.
Yeah, look,
Yes,
we could have had a little bit more Ukrainian support there. A little bit of Duka would have been lovely, but would have been kind of a little bit of in there somewhere. A bit of a mirror ball head would have been fantastic.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting with the song along. I wonder how they formed the artists that we're going to perform in it, because you have people like Loreen, you have people like Conchita performing alongside Anna from Moldova in 2019, who didn't even qualify. So it was a good mix that sometimes I wonder, is it just the people that were there?
Where were Elle and
I'm really curious.
Where were Elle and Nikki? Let's be honest.
You know, it's a funny thing. This fan club, this Australian fan club, they love Elle and Nikki, and every time we have an event, that's the last song that is requested to be played. So we have a thing, but I still
even before Ya Ya Ding Dong.
Well, obviously, Ya Ya Ding Dong from now on will be the last song, so that we can kick everyone out. So, okay, look,
Christopher.
Yes.
I reckon there was one, while everyone would say Hatari should have been in it, I have one fantasy which would have been Sylvia Knight. If she just sang Congratulations, that would have made it. That would have given it a 10.
Icelandic, yes, yeah.
Of course, with the golden shower and everything, of course. In fact, maybe Hatari could have given the golden shower. No, I take that back. I'll edit that out.
Stop there. Kai, you might need to look that one up, by the way. Not golden shower, but Sylvia Knight.
Okay, let's go over to Michael in Sydney for a little bit of a review and a score out of 10. That's my
So, unusual for me to say, there were too many dicks.
Ooh.
I mean, this film was actually interesting. I actually really enjoyed it. It was Will Ferrell. I didn't expect very much, and he delivered that as well. In between that was a beautiful little movie with some amazing homage to the things that we love, we as fans absolutely love. And I mean, if it wasn't for Will, it wouldn't be there. But you know, there was a lot of American humour thrown in there, and I'm still a little bit lost. You could cut out a lot of his sort of signature jokes of penises and things like that. Yeah. And then there's 5 or 10 minutes of sort of really smutty, completely. It was terrible sort of humour that way there. And it really follows the rule there that there were no females talking to other females apart from talking about the main character, can I just say? So, yet again, for women empowerment, this wasn't a particularly strong film. There were bits of this film which gave me goosebumps. There were bits of this film that made me laugh so much and love it. There were other bits of it which made me cringe more than I should have. It was 15 minutes too long. I would have loved this to be a cult film, and maybe it will become one if I rewatch it and get enough of these little body tonics into me somehow. But I'm going to give it a 5.2.
Oh, that's
not fantastic, but you know what? I love it. It'll be a Eurovision film. They're not going to make another one, so I'm going to learn to love it. And there are bits of it which are absolutely fantastic. Bits of which are iconic. And as Luke says, yeah, my ding dong anytime. But it's
Well, babe, because all I'm thinking about it, but at the moment, babe, is yeah, wrong is all I'm thinking. But sure.
Well, we've got to have spectrums here, don't we? Somehow or other. Yeah, there are bits of which I absolutely love. But I'm going to be an honest reviewer. Was this the best film I've ever seen? No. Was this the best Eurovision film I've ever seen? Yep.
Of course.
Will I watch it again? Of course. And will I sing along? Of course. But what was it? It was a solid 5 and a bit.
How about you, Ruth? Ruth is coming to us from our national capital, Canberra, in sunny Canberra. Yeah.
Well, look, Dal, if you live in the ACT and you've lost your job to COVID, your eldest daughter has come home from uni to live with you because she's been kicked out of South Australia. It's midwinter. We've got -4 nights here. My God, I didn't realise how badly I needed a laugh. I really do.
Hope you're getting one.
No end.
I hope we're giving you one. Well, how about giving us your little review of the Story of Fire Saga?
Yeah, it was a great laugh. It cheered me up enormously, and that was the power of it, the comedy. For a Eurovision fan, I'd give it 8 out of 10. I think it's lovely to relive some of the songs and some of the performers that you've seen before. Great cameos. And I did like the fact it was made with affection for the contest and for Iceland. I was worried they were going to try and trash Iceland and try and make it some sort of hokey place that, only losers came from. But I think they gave a lot of affection to Scandinavia and to the contest. It was very entertaining. It made me laugh. Yeah, Michael's absolutely right. It's 15, 20 minutes too long. It could have been edited a lot better. Mm-hmm. For anyone who doesn't know Eurovision, out of 10, maybe a 4. If you love Will Ferrell, Eurovision fans, an 8. Yeah, look, I enjoyed it and I needed it and it was fun.
I'm going to take the 8. I'm going to record the 8 because that's, yep. So, Ruth, who do you think in your vast knowledge of Eurovision, considering that you started way back in 74, who are the real life Lars and Sigrid?
Well, I did think of IQ.
Okay.
Have you ever thought about it? We've come too far now, there's no way. Because they were kind of a couple, but not quite. And also Zala and Kasper from Slovenia. Do you remember that white-clad couple that just looked each other in the eye?
Yep.
And but obviously, for me, it's Dathi and Arnu. Because they're married, they have this baby. Look, as I said, I'm a middle-aged white woman, straight woman. I like babies. There was a baby at the end. I don't know if any of you saw that Iceland did a similar thing to Australia's Big Night In on the Saturday that Eurovision was supposed to take place, and they got votes from everyone, same as Miff and Joel did. Their 12 points went to Italy, but they also did a live cross with Dathi and Arnu, who actually live in Berlin, and they had their baby with them, and she was dressed in green with a picture of herself on the front. It was the full package. So it was the happy Icelandic married couple with a baby. So for me, that was them. But I think their story has probably been less chaotic than the one in this movie.
I'm kind of actually really offended, though, that all of us don't collectively think that the lead roles from this movie are both Jedward. So
yes! Yes!
I don't think that they're all Jedward. So kind of offended by that.
For me, Secret is Emily de Forest. She's that.
Yes, siblings, exactly.
Emily de Forest is she appears as being a sweet person, has the same look. I just thought that was the past Eurovision winner that didn't appear in the movie, so that was kind of filling in that. No one filled in for Mans except for the before said Russian backing dancers. So we sort of covered the past winners pretty well. Now I've got to find out where I'm up to in my thingy. We're talking about Double Trouble now. Now, Double Trouble was Fire Saga's Eurovision song, and they got on stage and performed it in a very interesting way. Kai, what did you think of the performance?
I think it was great they used the
hamster wheel.
I think it was great that they used the hamster wheel. Is that what
Yep,
we call it?
yep.
Hamster wheel from the Ukraine song that they had a few years ago with TikTok, I think. And it was very similar because when you go back and watch that performance, you see that the long dress, and it's like very familiar. And you're like, oh, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? Yeah, I think it's great that they use that as like a past thing and get that back into the movie because that was a really good song. I thought the performance was overall great. How they got back up and continued singing, that was also really good. That because that's something that most Eurovision people would do. For example, the UK representative a few years ago when someone just ran on the stage and she just was like whatever and just kept on singing along and doing her thing, and that's typical Eurovision, just keep on going. The show must go on. Yeah.
I felt the presence of Adina from The Incredibles on the corner of the stage going, no scarves. I told you, no scarves. So I felt like her presence there. But Angela, there was a car crash that followed, halfway through that performance, and it went horribly wrong, and everything that can happen did happen. So do you think that an actual performance like that in real life would actually qualify as a pity vote like it did in the movie?
I think any performance with a hamster wheel should always qualify. TikTok was actually one of my favourite songs. I think that was 2014, something like that. So do I think that a song would get through on a pity vote? The answer is...
With a runaway hamster wheel and everything going wrong, do you think it would still get in? So
I think if an act put together a stage production that went into the crowd, winner. So if they actually choreographed it, they made it happen. Absolutely. But if it was a bit of a cluster, like what we saw, do I think that that's realistic? No. And the reason, every year we hear of songs who miss out getting into the final and how dare they miss out. When you look at some years, I think 2018 was one of those years where there were maybe 6 songs that missed out getting in and they were so close. So do I think that a train wreck would get in? I think they have in the past, to be honest, but not in the future. I don't think so.
Okay. While we're with you, Ange, let's go to Lisa for a little bit of a review and a score out of 10.
Oh gosh, my score out of 10. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit of background. The morning that the movie came out, my daughter sent me a clip of the Have You Seen This? So we got Laura into Eurovision only 2 years ago. So for her to say, Mum, you've got to see this, it's like, thanks darling, I know it was dropping today. It was pretty awesome, but she is an absolute Will Ferrell fan, so she still hasn't seen it yet, but the humour of the Will Ferrell and our family and our connections with that, I'd have to give it an 8.
An 8?
I do love the American humour is shit, but oops.
No, it's all right. We're all grown-ups here. It's fine. We're all in lockdown. Worst things have been said.
Yeah. But the when I saw my beautiful Salvador performing, I just went, I really love this. So on a Eurovision kick, it just was way up there for me. So okay. I loved all the cameos. So it's an 8 for me.
8. Now, look, we need to talk about something. We need to talk about that scoring system and the scoreboard in the movie. Like, surely they should have got some fact checkers to work this out, and So, like, Ricky, did you what were some of the goofs that you picked up on, like with that ludicrous scoring system?
Well, I mean, the fact that they're doing a scoring like in the semi-final where they're actually getting every country to announce their score, that is one. And then you kind of pointed out that like every time when Iceland will get a score, they always start from 0 to something, and they never actually are progressing. So it's almost like it was a very half-assed effort to try to include a part of like Eurovision that we as nerds really love, But like to other people, I guess like to the general public, they didn't really care because it's just like a 10-second kind of like component of it. But it was just really kind of strange and funny.
Yeah. Did you know
200 million people?
Sorry,
200 million people watch.
Let's go, Michael.
Yeah, 200 million people watch Eurovision each year. There's probably only about 50,000 of us that watch the semi-final 1 and 2 and know what's going on. Let's be perfectly honest. That's for us. You've got to include a little bit of that sort of stuff there. But, you know, there was some very big inconsistencies, weren't there, Ricky?
Yeah, like, I mean, it's just I don't know. I feel like that they wanted to, like, include part of it that it keeps us happy, and then also a little bit of it so for the general public, but not too much of it so that like, it bores everyone. So they wanted to know, like, Eurovision have the score and why do they give them 12 points instead of like, you know, 1 to 10, that sort of thing.
What about you, Kai? Did you pick up? What about you, Kai? Did you feel? Did you pick up on any other goofs we haven't covered yet?
I think Ricky said it pretty perfectly. It just, you know, was so off and so wrong. I really thought they would have done a lot more research, considering that there was a lot more research done for other scenes. I thought they could have pulled that off a lot better. Yeah, it just wasn't a good scene at all.
And
can I just point out all the big five were in that semi-final.
Yep.
All big five. And all 5 Scandies and Greece and Cyprus. And there were 26 people on the board.
There was. And Australia was there on 0 the whole time, and there was no 1 to 7. It kind of makes me feel like obviously there's going to be no grand final, so we don't know that yet. So they want to give the idea of these people giving their 12, 10 and 8 points. Yeah. So I understand it, but it's almost like you're only providing this for the non-Eurovision fans to give them a bit of an insight into what Eurovision's like, but they won't understand it. The only people that do understand it are the Eurovision fans who are just going to pick out every inconsistency.
Can I just say, Finland performed in the semi-final. They were not on the scoreboard. Did anybody pick that up?
No, we didn't pick that up. This is the goofs that we want, yes.
We also have to remember, though, that like the Eurovision impression was Will Ferrell's impression, and that year Isaiah performed at Eurovision, so no wonder Australia always sat in 0.
The highlight of the movie was certainly the song-along, but that was until the final song, Husavik, was performed. And I think a lot of people out there agree that Husavik was the highlight. This is the Eurovision moment that we experience, and the movie brought that to life. So, Michael, what are your thoughts on the song, Husavik?
I mean, it's a beautiful song, isn't it? When you put it down to it, it has all the classic bits and pieces there. It is. I think it's a 4-chord progression. Ruth, you'll help me out on that, but I'm pretty sure it goes that way there.
It's a what?
It has 4 chords in it, and that's about it for this whole song. But it's a beautiful song. That last, it just builds and builds and builds. And when it comes down to it, it is very much what Salvador did say. It was a song about something. It was a song. There's some beautiful lines there about whales and there's a little reference to elves. And I've actually been fortunate enough to go to Iceland. It really does reflect some of those bits and pieces. The opening piano there is sort of that. It's a very sort of mysterious and sort of very eerie sort of place. It's beautiful, and it works its way out through to that final note. Which, oh
God!
Even our goddess Kate would have loved to hit.
So, Fiona, do you think Husavik would have actually won a Eurovision?
Absolutely, without a doubt. It's just a typical sentimental belter of a ballad that you hear in Eurovision, and I think it would, mainly because of the whole Icelandic, sentiment about it, singing about my hometown, and it is very much along the Salvador lines. It's a very classical driven kind of song, very basic instruments, basic chords, but the melody is what wins you over. And again, it's that type of song. Brings a tear to the eye, which we all want and love. So it definitely would have won Eurovision.
But the lyrics, though, the lyrics are the important thing. I belong at home and I belong with you. And you think every other Eurovision song is about ne partez pas sans moi, let's go out, do your own thing, be brave, explore. And it's all about, no, let's just go home and be ourselves. That was quite poignant to me, actually. And we think of I Love Belarus, this sort of self-promotion of the country. Would it really have won if it was so introspective and navel contemplating? Yeah, it's a beautiful song, but would it have won? I don't know. I wish it would.
Well,
I would love it.
Yeah, I just think with the whole COVID-19 as well, people would resonate because obviously people will be at home and self-reflection and all that. So I think it would have
lucky you are.
If it was on this year.
And it's like asking the question, is this the first time that Iceland would ever have won?
Oh,
with this song?
On that note, I was going to ask Ruth, because I know Ruth is a huge fan of Dadi.
I like it. Well, you're interested, yeah.
And well, I mean, you certainly love Think About Things. So let's think. Is it, well? First of all, it's kind of funny that this movie would be about Iceland when Iceland is one of the favorite countries out of all the online polls that were produced. So, Ruth, do you think that this Husavik would have been better than Think About Things?
Oh, God, yes, definitely. I mean, I think that the novelty factor this year, we had Lithuania, Russia, and Iceland, all with little dancey novelty moves, because people needed picking up and we needed something cheerful. I think this could have crashed through all of that, just as I think Ali Nella had suggested that the Italian song, Fai Rumore, could have done as well. This is so much more pure and more heartfelt and more poignant. Yes, I think this would have done really well. It's a shame. I think Iceland get a win out of this year anyway, even though because they've got the movie, they've got the tourism, they've got the interest. I've always has a flavour for the underdog. I wanted Portugal to win. Now they've done that. I wanted Iceland to win because they've never won. They've kind of done that. Next stop, Malta.
Malta. Could this be the ticket for the Story of Fire Saga to win an Oscar for best song?
For the song, not for the movie. For Husavik, yes.
Well,
wouldn't that be great? I'd love that. Yeah.
For me, yeah. Okay. Well, look, I'll give my review. This was exactly what I expected and probably a little bit more, actually. I'm actually a huge movie buff, and I'm a big Oscar buff. I've spent most of my time in lockdown unwrapping DVDs from JBs that I bought 3 or 4 years ago. I cannot tell you how many movies I've watched over the last 3 months. But
good man.
But with every epic, you need those light-hearted comedy sort of movies as well. For one reason, those epics won't be epic if you don't have the movies that are bad to sort of bump them up the ladder a little bit, But look, I mean, it helps that there's a subject matter close to my heart here. That is Eurovision. And the one criticism I actually had was that I found the supports just a little bit boring. There was the Russian and the Greek contestant. And I just felt there was some sort of sinister sabotage plot forming that they were trying. But
exactly, and it went nowhere.
And it went nowhere. They just sort of turned into a failed love triangle and then into just a failed subplot. And I was like, well, what are you actually there for, other than to give?
Did he want a beard? Did he want it for a beard? Was that the whole thing?
I don't even think it was that. It was almost like they were just.
We've all been there. Let's be honest.
They were just comedic versions of the stars that they were representing from their countries to add a little bit of that European flavour. So that was my only disappointment, other than obviously the scoring system, which I won't go any further.
It's all right. Now, you're among friends. You're in a safe space. We get it.
Now, look, as shocking as it is to admit, I actually liked Will's portrayal. He was like an innocent boy pursuing his dreams. He never gave up, and in the end, he won. He made it. He achieved his dream. So, it's terrible for me to say that, because I only hear about Will Ferrell from other people. I don't actually know his movies, so I can't really say anything bad about him without actually going and watching them all. but anyway, he was like, look, he was constantly laughed at, he was ridiculed, but he stayed true and strong to the end, and that's something that I really identify with. And it's really silly for me to say that Will Ferrell is my hero. I won't say that, but like that idea, it really resonates me. So that's what I found in it, and it's ridiculous. I'm just looking at my notes here. The other thing I really liked about it is that he wanted that spotlight. He found the spotlight, but in the end, he realized he didn't need the spotlight. He gave it to someone else, but he was still like just a meter away from it. But he just said, "This is your moment, and you have the spotlight." And so I also thought that was a really nice touch. The other thing was that, as Sigrid said, I am bigger than this contest. And it's nice to remind her from time to time that there are other things more important, but only just. Eurovision's pretty important. So for me, I give it a 7 out of 10. But I'm bumping it up to 8 because it's Eurovision. And that's a good score for me. So I'm giving it an 8. So overall, I've done a bit of a dodgy thing. It looks like this collective has given the movie Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga, a 6.5 out of 10, which is not too bad. I do know that it's 6.7 currently on IMDb. So we're pretty much on the mark. That's it for tonight. So I just want to thank everyone for participating tonight. It's great to hear everyone give their comments, and I think that we learnt a lot out of it as well, because there are some things that were said that I didn't know. So I thank everyone for attending, and I wish you all good luck. Like, stay safe, stay at home, all that stuff. And we will see you.
Be careful in Melbourne. Be careful. Stay out of those suburbs in Melbourne.
Can we all just make it? Can we all just make it official that we officially have like a Ruth reacts to everything that we do from now on? I want a Ruth reacts to everything, everything.
Now I'm going to get a quick photo snapshot. So if everyone can wave, and I'll try and do this with one hand. Give me 1 second. So everyone give us a quick...
Stop reacting, Ruth. Stop reacting.
Actually, I think I'll put on my headphones, my head horns. I set up my one hand. Okay, everyone wave. And that's done. I'll get this all together in the next day or so, post it on YouTube, and you can all see yourselves. And I thank you so much for participating. So I'll catch you later. Okay then.
Love your work, darling.
You too. Okay.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.